All right, welcome fellow coders to this next installment in our series where we are building a real-world web app from scratch, leveraging React on the front end and Spring Boot via Java on the back end. So in this one, we are going to be bringing in some more business logic into our existing application, where when someone submits an assignment, as this is an assignment submission app, when they go to submit an assignment, it will check and see for that user that's logged in if they have submitted an assignment yet. And if they have, it's going to figure out how many assignments have they submitted and which one have they not submitted. And the first one that they have not yet submitted will be the one that it gets sort of defaulted to for this drop down, right? So for this particular, for my coding bootcamp that I run, we have 14 assignments, although we only show 6 here. We'll have 14. So that's basically sort of some of the hard-coded logic that we'll have is, hey, which of the 14 assignments are you submitting? We're going to take our best guess at which one that is, pre-assign it here, and then they'll be able to submit their assignment as needed. So if that sounds of interest to you, if you want to see that logic and whatnot, stick around. All right, so to get started, basically, since this is going to be some business logic here, where we're going to have some, predefined, hard-coded number of assignments, and we're going to be storing that in the database, we should probably have all this on the back end. So that implies that we should open up our, I don't know why I stopped the server, open up our Java code. So for the Java code, for the assignment domain objects, we had added a name for the assignment, but I'm calling it audible here, and I'm going to say that instead of calling it a name for the assignment, we're going to have an integer that's going to be the assignment number, okay? And I'm going to add a getter and setter for this. Gonna get rid of the name and assign a getter and setter for number. I'm gonna Control-Shift-F to format my code and save. Now what is this? I have a to-do, create private user assign to. Oh yeah, I guess I haven't done that yet. I'll have to do that at some point. But one thing at a time. So we'll have an assignment number here. Let me reboot my server. And what this does, when it reboots, it's gonna add another field into our database. It's going to alter the database and add the number column, but it is not going to detect that we dropped the name. So we're going to have to manually do that ourselves. Not a big deal at this point, but we're going to have to remember that we don't need a name, so we'll have to drop that from our database. Again, not a big deal for right now. So we'll have an assignment number. Now, if you are doing things properly, we should also have, for these assignment numbers, this implies that you can assign any number to it. But for the bootcamp that I have, that I'm running, we have a specific number of assignments, 14 to be exact, and each of the assignments could be given a name, potentially. They could be, but those names are all sort of hard-coded, right? So basically what this implies is that we can use something like an enum, an enumerated type, can be used to say, hey, we have 14 assignments to pick from. Here's the 14 assignments, assignment number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way through 14. And then if we want to, we can also have a property there for the names of each of those. We can assign a name to each assignment. For now, I'm just going to have the assignment number, but yeah, maybe in the future we can open it up to having, names for our assignments. So basically what do we do from here? We can create a new enum, okay, enumerated type, and we'll put it into like a .enums package or something. Yeah, I guess that works. And the enum name can be the assignment enum, I guess. So this just creates this code. That's all that did, is create a public enum called assignment enum. And in here we will have the numbers. So I'm trying to think, how do I do this again? I haven't created an enum in a while. I guess we would call it, we have a name for it, assignment 1, and then we have a constructor that takes in an argument, right? So we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So now, because we have these enums that takes a parameter, it's basically saying, hey, well, you need to define this parameter that we're passing in. So this is just I think we make it private. This is just an integer, right? And it's called like assignment number. And then we should create a constructor here, public assignment enum, that takes in that parameter, right? Integer. I guess you could just make it an int. It doesn't really have to be an integer. That's no real benefit to making it a full integer. Assignment num. And then we can just say this dot assignment num equals assignment num. Oops. Assignment num. So this is nothing fancy or different. Now, what's going on? Remove invalid modifiers. Which modifier do I have? I guess it's not. Is it not public? I guess it's not public. And I accidentally imported this. Let me just delete this import. Oh, and then I need a semicolon here. And then you should probably have a getter method. So I'll do a getter method for that assignment number. And that's basically it. That's how you create an enumerated type. And if we wanted to in the future, we could add more information to these hard-coded assignments, whereby you can put a comma and have another parameter that is the name for this assignment. So assignment 1 could be the, HTML assignment. And then assignment 2 could be the, guessing game, right? I forget all the assignments, but assignment 3 is the user login. Assignment 4 is blah, 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 right? So you can add these parameters. And then if you wanted to add another parameter, you could have a string here, which is the assignment name, right? And then you would add that here as well. I don't know. Since I'm doing it, it looks like I should just do it like this. And then we say this dot assignment name equals assignment name, right? And then you can have a getter method for the assignment name as well, like this. Oh, not the setter. You don't need a setter. The setter is happening through the constructor. So basically, yeah, I guess I'll sort of, if I remember to, I will fast forward through the naming process for the rest of the assignments. All right, so there we go. I've named all of my assignments. That took me a little while. So yeah, now we have the enumerated type that we can work from, which is great. So this allows us to have these sort of hard-coded data. It's kind of like this, using an enum is sort of like, instead of using or storing this data in a database, you can sort of store it in memory, so to speak. And this works well. Enums are perfect for when you have drop-downs, right? That's, anytime I see a drop-down menu, I'm like, I should really consider using an enum here because it's just a really good fit. So here's our enumerated type. Now we can run with it. So with that, we essentially want to be able to get access to all of these data points or whatever from our enumerated type here, our assignment enum. We want to get access to them on the front end so that we can, well, do a couple things. We want to be able to populate the drop-down menu. So in here, we want to be able to populate the drop-down menu with the appropriate assignment number. And then we will also want to do that logic that checks to see, hey, are there any of these assignments already submitted by a student, right? So something like that. So we'll have to look into how to do that. So I'm trying to think, how do we, first, to get this data, we'll need to pass the data back to our view, which is this page over here. The assignment view page. And the assignment view page is, I'm assuming, on load. So here's the on load use effect hook. It is doing a get on this endpoint to get the assignment data. So maybe as a part of the assignment data, we could sneak in some this enum potentially. As opposed to doing it in a separate fetch. It potentially is less complex to do it all in one place. So sorry, that's an old presentation. Let me go here. And in the endpoint that we had that we're looking at there, the assignment controller get mapping with an assignment ID. So this is the one where we're finding the assignment by ID. And we're returning a response entity of an assignment. So what we could do here is, instead of returning the assignment domain object to the view, we could instead, because we want to add more data to this, the best way to do it is, since we're not storing this data, the best thing that we can do is to create a DTO that represents this response. So we can have an assignment response DTO, and the response, it just means that's the data that we're sending back. So what does the assignment response DTO have? Well, it has an assignment, and it has an assignment enum. Right? Although it's not one assignment enum, right? Is it? It's all of the assignment enums. So how does that happen? How does that come in? Let me import these guys. So the assignment enum dot. Sorry. When we do the getter method for assignment enum is assignment enum dot values. Okay, so it's an array of assignment enums is what I'm looking for, right? So this is actually going to be an array of assignment enums, and we can just say equals assignment enum dot values. Right, so we can assign it right there and then we can change this to be that type. We don't need a setter method, I don't believe, for the assignment enum, but we will need a setter method for the assignment and a getter method for the assignment. Okay, so that's what our DTO will look like. We're setting the values right here, and then we can get them here. For the enums, and then the assignment can be sent in there as a part of the response DTO. So how that changes our code here when we get the individual assignment is we still get the individual assignment from the database, but then we want to construct a new assignment, what was it called? Response DTO. So we can construct a new one of those, and we might as well make it so that we can pass in these two parameters, these two guys, as part of a constructor. So we'll do Alt-Shift-S and then constructor using fields, and we'll have it assign these two. Actually, we don't even need to assign, we don't need to pass in the assignment enum because we're already getting it here. It's already being populated here. So we really just want to have a constructor that allows us to pass in an assignment. That way on this part, when we say new assignment response DTO, we can pass in essentially this, right? And this is our response that we can then pass into the .ok part, right? So if I wanted to be non-verbose, if I wanted to be very succinct, I could just paste that in there. Okay, and there's a lot going on there, right? There's a optional or else going on with a new assignment, and there's a response DTO that's being instantiated. So there's a lot going on there, but I think for now that's okay. It's just not for me. It's readable because I'm used to this kind of way to spell out the code. So I think for me it's readable. But anyway, who knows? I might change my mind later about that. Who knows? So okay. Now, the implication of what we just did there was we've now changed the response that this get mapping endpoint returns. So now we need to go back to our front end and say, hey, anytime we're hitting this endpoint, we need to know that assignment data is not the individual assignment data anymore. It's the assignment response, sort of, so to speak. So let's call this assignment response. And then we can say, hey, let assignment data be equal to the assignment response dot assignment, right? And where did I get this assignment response dot assignment from? Well, if you look at the assignment response DTO, the property name here is dot assignment, and that's what we were previously doing and using for the assignment data. The assignment data was this dot assignment here that we just did. Now we also have the assignment enum, right? Yes. Let me just see. Okay. We also have the assignment enum on that response as well. So the assignment enum, where is it? On the assignment response, we also have the assignment enum. And that's where we can say, hey, we can have some state here. So we had the assignment state in the front end. We can also have some state for the assignment enums, and set assignment enums equals use state, and it will be what? It will be an array for now. And then here we can say, hey, set assignment enums to be assignment response dot, and then what was the property name? Assignment enum, copy, paste. Cool. So now we pull both of those pieces of data down from the back end. And it should, if I save it, it shouldn't break anything. Cool. So now we have our app here, and it looks good, right? Nothing has really changed. Not that it looks good, it's just that nothing has changed. So, but now we should have access to the state of assignment enums that we can then leverage, right? So how can we leverage assignment enums? Well, guess what? Right here for our drop-down list, instead of hard coding this, now this comes from our assignment enums. So we can say assignment enums dot map, and then we can say, you know, enum, and the event key could be enum dot, what is the, I think assignment num was what we called it, if I'm not mistaken. And then this could be enum dot assignment, yeah, num. Cool. Now I've broken something somewhere. What did I break? Is enum a reserved word? Yeah, it's a reserved word. My bad. So enum is a reserved word. So we'll call this the assignment enum. Assignment enum. Okay. Doesn't look like it worked. I don't see anything in here. So let's do a quick little use effect hook so that we can inspect the value of assignment enum. So assignment enum, I think is the name. Oh wait, no, enums with an S. That's the state. And then we'll put in a little bracket here, dependency, to say, hey, make it dependent on assignment enums. Save it. So that way we'll see in the console the output. So here's the array. So here's what the array looks like. So these are the values. Okay, so that's not necessarily what I wanted to give back to the front end, so that's my bad. That's the back end code. This dot values is essentially not what we wanted. I want all of the enums. How do I get? I mean, I feel like that should have returned. It looks like it returns assignment enum array, which I feel like should have all of the values for... Is it because I didn't reboot? Maybe I need to reboot. Although I think I did reboot, but let me... Just in case. Just because this feels wrong, it feels like we should have more data available to us. Let's refresh the page and see. There we go. Oh, no, I lied. Still not good. Right? Because I'm missing the names of the assignments. So we have the name of the enum, but that's all we have. We just have the names of the enums. We don't have the numbers. We don't have any of the data that goes in the actual enums, right? Now, is there an obvious error here above that's just saying warning, control ID, warning, these are just warnings. These are not errors, and I can tidy those up later. So yeah, the I guess what we can do is see in the assignment controller here when we, I guess, here we go. I'm gonna have to turn this into a new variable. We'll call this the response. I want to inspect that response. So let me stop and run in debug mode. Although it might have already been running in debug mode, but anyway. Let's see. Come back and refresh. So it should hit our breakpoint somewhere at some point. There we go. So it's about to return the response. So what is in the response? Let me see what's in the assignment enums. So we have this assignment enum. If we look into this assignment enum, see we have the name and the number, right? We have the enum name, the two properties that we have. So it's there. It's inside of this array, but the array, it's just doing this, right? That's what it's actually returning, which is, I'm not sure why it's doing that. I would have assumed it would have passed the entire enumerated type with all the data inside of it, right? Because each of these should be an object, essentially, right? And the objects have properties. So let me see. Maybe we, for some reason, maybe we do have access to this, and I'm just being a little. But yeah, it would be assignment name, assignment num would be the names that we would use to get access to this stuff. Assignment name, assignment num, and that's what we're doing in the front end, I think. So if we go here, we're saying iterate through each of the assignment enums, and say assignment enum dot assignment num, which is what it's called on the response, right? Assignment enum has assignment num for number. Yeah, so interesting. So that is something I did not anticipate. So how are we going to fix this bug? I mean, one thought that I have is maybe let's try to do this. Let's try to put let's try to have this as not an array, although I think it doesn't matter. I think it's fine to have an array. But let's turn it into a list, and let's be a little bit more new array list. We'll be a little bit more forceful with our getter method. So the getter method, which will return a list of assignment enums, we'll just do that. Sorry, and when we instantiate this, so when we create a new response DTO, we can populate the assignment enum list. So we can say, hey, assignment arrays dot stream the assignment enum dot values. So we're going to stream the values, and for each one of these assignment enums, we are going to populate the assignment. This should say enums. Get assignment enums. Enums. Yeah. So assignment enums dot add an enum, which is assignment enum. Now it just feels very not necessary. This feels very redundant, but I just want to be absolutely sure I'm not missing anything. So let me terminate my server here and reboot. So we're just streaming through the values and then adding that enum back into a list, which it's silly. This is silly. This is not, I don't see any reason why this would make a difference. And it would be silly if it did make a difference, right? So we can look at the response. So now instead we have this array list, right? And it still looks like this. So there's still, it still looks the same to me. And then when we send it back to the front end, oh, can't read property undefined of while reading map. So I've actually broken something. So let me get rid of my breakpoint, refresh. Drop down button. So in the assignment, oops. What did I do? Assignment enums. Oh, enums with an S, right? We renamed it. So when we set the, so when we're getting the data from the front, from the back end, we need to call it something correctly. But you see, it's not making a difference, right? It's still, it still just has this data only. Which is interesting. Maybe, I guess what's happening here, my only guess as to what's happening is that the parser to transform an enum, there is no parser to parse an enum and parse it into, or stringify it into a JSON string. That's the only thing I can imagine is wrong here. It's not properly translating all this stuff, which is kind of annoying. So the workaround is to have I have to do the mapping myself. So I essentially need to create a mapper, right, to some sort of to a DTO. So we'd have to map it to we create a DTO called assignment enum DTO, which just feels ridiculous. But this is the DTO for the assignment enum, which will carry the same assignment name and private int. We'll call it integer assignment number, right? So we have the same getters and setters as we have as we had on our enum over here. It has these two things, right? Number and name, right? So we can have a DTO that has those two things, and then we have to map it ourselves. So as we stream the values, instead of having a list of assignment enum, we have a list of assignment enum DTOs. And then what we'd have to do is map it. So we'd have to say, hey, create a new assignment enum DTO. And this is where the DTO should take like the name and the number, right? So we can have the assignment enum dot get name and assignment enum dot get the number, right? And we'll create this as a constructor for the DTO. Right, here's the constructor for the DTO. Actually, let me auto-generate that because that was a bad constructor. So let me construct using fields, those two fields, boom. So there's our constructor. And let me stop the server. And that should be, yeah. So now, boom, this is our new DTO that we're adding, and we can add it to the list here, right? Copy paste that new, again, there's a lot going on in that line, but basically we're mapping, we're mapping each of the enums into a DTO, into its corresponding DTO, and then adding that to the list. And oh, this needs to return a DTO as the get assignment enums. So we're not really getting an enum anymore, but anyway, it's enum-esque, if you will. So this should now solve the problem, because I had to do the mapping myself. But hey, we will see. Yeah, so now we see that there's 14 this list, and when we expand this out, now each of the elements has a name and a number, so we have all the data, right? So it's kind of silly that I had to do that myself. I thought that we would have the mapping would already be built into Spring. This is probably a Spring problem, is my guess. If you wanted to do a Google search, there might be a way to solve this. So in other words, Spring, or this might be a Jackson mapping JSON Java enum or something might be the keywords that I might do. Yeah, how to serialize and deserialize enums with Jackson. So there you go. There must be a way to do it. So here's our enum. He's got an example of an enum. Serializing, by default, Jackson will represent Java enums as a simple string. For example, mile, which should have more information, have miles and whatever, it just maps it as mile, which is exactly the behavior that we were seeing, which was not the desired behavior. What we would like to get when marshalling, I guess that's the word that they use, is that we want to see this, which is actually absolutely true. That's what I end up having to do manually. So starting with Jackson 2 point whatever, there's now a configuration option that handles this kind of representation. This can be done via JSON format at the class level. So shoot, that's all we had to do. So that's good. That's why I wanted to Google it first. So we'll do that. And yet another simple way of controlling the marshalling output is using JSON value annotation on the getter. Okay. So let's try this one. So we'll add that back into the enum. So basically on the enum, you put in this JSON format. Cool. Let's stop this. And I'll leave my code in place. But let me comment this out and comment this out and go back to what we had before, which was private assignment enum array. And come on. And we'll call it assignment enums equals assignment enum dot values. Okay, so that'll get us all the values there. Then we'll need to change this back to a, well, we'll comment this out. How about that? And we'll add the getter method only for that one. So it's just a different, instead of returning a list, we're returning an array. So that was sort of back to the code that we had previously. So let's reboot our app. And, oh, hold on. Or do we have, in the, is there anything else I need to do here? I guess not. Okay, so let's see. Does that fix our problem? Look at that. Yes, it does. Okay, so that is a much, much nicer. So you see the output here is the same as we had before, which is where I had to do the mapping myself. But the problem with doing the mapping yourself is if anything changes in the enum, you have to remember to update the mapping code as well, which is just going to lead to bugs in the future. So I'm glad I looked up how to do that. So now I'm going to roll back the code, just delete all the commented out code, because I don't want to check in a bunch of commented out code. That's never a good thing. Cool. So now there we go. We have our drop down. Now, obviously, there's more to it that needs to happen here. There's more business logic that needs to happen in terms of checking to see, hey, has this person actually submitted an assignment yet? If they have, then what's the next assignment that they need to submit? And then we would refine this list to exclude assignments that they have already submitted, right? So that's additional logic that we'll throw in, I guess, in the next lesson. So hopefully you enjoyed this one on enums and a little bit of a bonus on how to marshal enums from the front or from the back end to into a JSON string so that it can be received in the front end. That's a little bonus for you. So thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already subscribed and you enjoy this content, be sure to click above to subscribe, and please do give a like on the video. YouTube algorithm, etc., etc. You know the drill. Cool. Thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson. Take care of yourself. As always, happy learning, and bye for now.